Let's just rub this surface with a bit of naphtha, see if it'll expose any other screws that I haven't seen yet. No, that looks like it. Okay. See if anything will come loose. Right, well that's 5 screws lifted, and that might be all that are there. Let's see if it will lift. Yep. Couple of washers under here, shims. This is a piece of felt in the middle here. Is there anything loose in here that I need to be aware of? Doesn't look like it. I'd blow that. That's leather straps that we're seeing there. Now I can look more at this piece here. See if I can work out why it's flapping about. I'll see if there's anything loose. No. Is that screw loose? No. There's certainly an undue amount of movement there. Maybe that this plate is bent. Put the knob back on there. Let's tighten that up and see how it behaves. Plate here just runs in a channel in this casting. Under here it's held down by this bracket on that side. To this you could certainly adjust the movement by putting shims or reducing shims under there. At this side less so, there's less room to do anything like that there. It may be necessary to put a shim under the whole piece in order to stop that flapping about. It's interesting though. Right, well that gives me my access to the focus adjustment side. It looks to me like there's a wedge here which it would allow you to adjust the amount of rattle on this piece. I assume that's what it's for. It would certainly enable you to adjust the amount of movement in this direction. There's a little bit of movement there, but it's more up and down in this area that I see as being a problem, and it may just be down to things being bent. Right, well, I think in the first instance I'll remove these screws and that one, see if I can lift this piece out, clean it and see what I'm dealing with. So that screw there has just got two tiny notches on it, and I don't know if I've got anything that'll bite into that easily. They're quite small. I certainly don't have a screwdriver that size. Yeah, that loosened it. This is the sort of job you want somebody else's tweezers for, not your own good tweezers. That's a shoulder screw. Certainly this is adjustable to take the slop out in that direction. Take that plate off. No moving parts, it's just a simple plate. The grease is pretty nasty, and this piece here would make the adjustment for that. Will this lift out now? There's a spring-loaded plunger there with a little nylon pad on it. It might not be nylon, might be something else. See if this will lift out. And of course I've got to rotate the focus in order to get that out. Yes, 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 it's coming. Is it? The grease in here is terrible, it's just shocking stuff. I'm going to have to remove this piece in order to get this out. Alright, so I want all this filth off here, then I'm going to check it carefully to see if it's bent, because I suspect it probably is. And this grease is just, it's just awful stuff. It's very sticky. I don't know where I last struck something, like just recently I've struck stuff like that. I'll start cleaning this mess up anyway. Well, I have that lot all cleared and cleaned out now, so that side I think I can call that done for the moment. I've got to turn my attention to the other side of the camera before I start reassembling this stuff. On the film advance side, we can start by taking off the bracket. There's shim under the front end there by the looks of it. Make a note of that. The leather is lifting here. There's a lot of Zeiss bumps. Oh yeah, that's a bit of corrosion or something under there, I think. quite different to the other side. That was in very good order. Leather's better towards the base. There's a brass patch under here, presumably to cover this area, probably designed to stop the leather from telegraphing the lumps and bumps to the front surface. In practice, the corrosion set in where that brass plate is, so it's probably created more unevenness in the leather than it was preventing. However, I'm sure it seemed like a wonderful idea when they were new. Okay, we've got that leather off in one piece nicely. I'm not sure whether I've got to knock the pin out of this film advance lever. Better go and do my homework and find out. Apart from that, it'll be 2 screws here and whatever's holding that side plate on there. Because basically I want to remove the advance mechanism so I can get to the focus mechanism. Yes, so I had to drive that pin out. That was entertaining. That should take off our advance lever. We'll see what we've got under here. Now there are a couple of pads here. They're not sure what they're made of. Bakelite possibly. Couple of springs that sat underneath them, give them some tension. Hopefully this all just lifts off with the side with the cover. I'll see if I can discover where the screws are. There's one there. One there, one in the corner there, let's go for them first. I'm checking these as I take the screws off to see if I spot one that's a different size to the others. I'll need to take note of where it came from. There's one here. Have we got enough? Something's still holding us down. This, I suppose it's the glue layer, is pretty strong. There must be something over in this corner. There's one. Alright, side cover off. A shim here. Blow that. Most of the dust here is just leather fragments from having taken that side panel off. Okay, well I've got to get rid of all of this because underneath is where I want to get to the focus mechanism on this side. Right, that looks like fun. I better study this closely because it could be entertaining. This piece lifts off presumably. Yes. I'm just seeing where everything's held down. There's 1, 2 large screws there. There's possibly a third one somewhere here holding that plate on, but all these components for the frame counter and so forth may well cause me problems. There's a shim here, we'll lift that off. There's a lot going on here. I will certainly need to do my homework before I strip all this down, because potentially there are timing issues involved here in getting the gears back correctly positioned. It looks like I'll have to take some of these components off here. I expect to be able to lift this plate off at some stage so that I can get at the focus mechanism underneath. Now this is all basically frame counter related stuff here. We've got a tab, spring-loaded tab here, which engages everything when the back is closed. That's all related to this piece down here. That's where that is activated from. So I want to lift that off. I don't really know what that's going to look like under there. To get this plate off, I'm going to have to take this dial off. This lever here that runs under here runs under that casting at that point, and somehow or another I've got to get it out this way from under there. So I don't know what that's going to involve. It looks to me like the plate is held with a screw here, and probably that post there. I don't know if there's a fourth screw somewhere down here hiding underneath one of those levers. But what I hope to do is remove this piece pretty much as a unit, put it to one side and deal with it separately. I don't want to have to deal with a whole mess of parts that I don't know what they are. So we'll start right here, I think. I'll see if I can unhook that spring. That's a shoulder screw. This piece lifted off. This lever lift out. Yes, okay, so that's the lever. That was the lever that went through into there, and that senses the back's closed and so engages your counter. This lever, what's holding this in place? Oh, there's a big screw here holds this lever in place. That's obviously connected up to a shaft that runs right through. This little collar here is an eccentric, and that obviously gives some adjustment. The shaft running right through is connected to what? That's definitely feels like that's rattling this. It's not just screwed in. I would have expected that just to be revolving around the head. Oh, okay. That's the film sensing lever by the looks of it, or it tensions the film. I don't know what to make of that. Oh, that little piece, that little shim, I know where that came from. That was sitting right here. It's a washer that's had its edges cut away so that it would fit over against the edge there. Is that washer loose? Yeah, it's only held on with grease. I'll take that off. We can take that gear out. It actually drives our film spool. I'll probably lift that film spool out and get it out of the way. Okay, so the mystery with this object will be hidden underneath that cover, I believe. Take out that film spool too to tidy things up. Yeah, it's certainly connected to this roller under here, which is pivoted at a point here, has a spring behind it. Oh, the spring is actually on here. There's no spring in there, that's loose. Alright, well let's investigate. Well, that loosened up precisely nothing. Pop those back while I think about my next move. I'm not going to disturb anything. If that didn't lift off, well, I'm not going to move the camera about in case there's a spacer or a shim or something under there, which might fall out of place if I was to tip the camera open with this over with the screws missing, and which would cause me grief. There's a third screw down here, but it doesn't look immediately like it's linked to that cover. I don't think there's anything going all the way through here. Doesn't appear to be. Oh, there's a third screw here on that cover. Let's try undoing the 3 screws. That screw also holds that tab in place. So if I loosen the 3 screws instead of 2, will this piece come loose? Yes, it does. Okay, so I think we're in business there now. We've got an answer. Okay, that came out as a unit, and there is our, it's basically a leaf spring to keep the film vaguely tensioned against the spool. Okay, so that clears more stuff from the sides of this unit. What can I see here? Well, I can see that there's a very strong spring hooked up here to the chassis and to a lever at that point, but I can't immediately see what that lever does. Whether it's, yeah, it's the shutter cocking mechanism. And that returns that down there. Well, that's actually below this plate that I want to lift off, so I'm going to leave that in position at the moment. My frame counter disc here, I'll remove that. Taking note of where that sits. I don't know if that's timed to that piece or not. That's fixed to something else under there. Let's take those 3 screws out. That's our disc off. Okay, there's a spring here. You can see it's coupled to this brass disc. These are the notches, presumably they're the frame counter notches. Does this wheel lift off its post? It does. Well, all this stuff is quite sticky. You can see the way that oozes back to the rest position, so none of that's good. It's going to have to come off to be cleaned one way or the other. So I'm going to undo that screw, remove that lever. Not because it's necessary to get to the focus which I need to get to, but because it is just gummy and is going to need attention one way or the other. We can wriggle that out from under there. Now this is I can see one end of the spring, I can't see the other. Where's that? Well, it looks like it's nowhere. So what does that? Oh, it has got a tab on there. There's a tab on that spring. That engages with this slot here. Okay. Well, the complications are largely lifting away. There's a bracket here that holds this wheel in place. And I think it also holds this plate down to the the body casting. I'll take that bracket away. That wheel won't lift off there. I'll remove this film advance. That's not its proper pin, by the way. That was one I put there, a smaller pin that I put there to hold this loosely together while I was working on it. The original pin was a larger diameter and of course had to be driven in. Just making note of which way up this thing goes. Now this wheel should lift off. It does. Try and keep these pieces together. Okay, so I've certainly got one fixing screw here. I believe I've got a fixing screw under that post. Let's have a look at that. What have I got here going on? There's a spring here. First of all, there's a coil spring back to that bracket. See if I can lift that off there. And there are two levers here with a little spring between them. Yeah, there's not much tension involved in that. And this is all pretty gummy, so that really wants to come off anyway. Let's have that off. So that screw came loose. The spring is surrounding the groove in that screw. We have this lever, comes up through here, through that arm. See if it'll, yeah, I can wiggle that out. And there's our spring. It went back to this post. Now, that was not fixing this down to the camera body, but there's a screw here that definitely was, which I hadn't seen before because it was hidden. We'll have that out. Is this plate loose? It's not, it doesn't feel even vaguely loose. What about this screw at the corner here? Is that holding us down? That's completely rigid, it's not moving at all. Perhaps there's something under here. No. Then what about this piece? Could that be holding us down? Let's get that off there anyway.